Welcome back to Toast Sports Baseball, episode 9. It's been a wild week in baseball. Brandon Hyde is out as manager, Bellinger's mashing, and the Dodgers just got swept at home by the Angels. We've got some Soto drama in Queens. We got PED suspensions, trade rumors for Paul freaking Skenes, and somehow the Twins are legit. Let's go ahead and dive in. Joe, how about this firing for Brandon Hyde?
Yeah, I don't like it. Brandon Hyde won Manager of the Year 2 years ago in 2003 when he took the Orioles to the playoffs, where they did get kicked out early, but they won 101 games in the regular season, and then won 91 games last year. At the same token, the GM, Mark Elias, who was not a part of the ownership group's hiring. He's part of the old ownership group. He also won Executive of the Year in 2023. And it's an interesting concept going on right now, dynamic. Brandon Hyde is kind of the one who's molded this entire young core together. And the core seems very upset that he was fired as they got swept this weekend after his firing. How many times can I say firing in one sentence? It's one of those things where I've been a part of where a team is underperforming or not living up to expectations, and you want a new voice in the dugout. And, sometimes that works and you get a new voice and that team's able to make a turnaround and they kind of find new inspiration. And other times it is management and ownership kind of putting the blame on someone for under expectations. And to me, I feel like Hyde is kind of getting that blame.
Yeah, I think it's similar, but obviously different than the Colorado Rockies because these two organizations are in way different realms of each other. But when we're looking at the Orioles, right, and we're looking at this last offseason and what the O's could have done to make this a better roster from a front office perspective, they simply didn't do it. They simply went out and just said, we're not going to pay any of these pitchers. We're going to let our, at the time, ace walk for nothing. And we're going to expect to win the World Series this year. And you just can't do that in today's day and age in baseball. You have to stay very vigilant in maintaining your roster and making sure that, you're putting in value at key spots, specifically in the pitching staff, which their woes have just been highlighted for. I think there was actually a joke out there because after Hyde got let go, they allowed 6 runs in the first inning of a loss to the Nationals, in which they lost 10-6. And somebody was like, Brandon Hyde somewhere sitting at home being like, can't blame that one on me. It's one of those things where it's just like, I agree. I think it doesn't bode well for an incoming manager or whoever sticks around. You feel like you're kind of being put in a situation where you weren't given all the tools to succeed. Now, that being said, you got to have some sort of accountability here. We're talking a 15-28 start. It's bad.
I think based off the players' interviews, they are blaming themselves, which they should, because the offense has been underperforming. Grayson Rodriguez and Kyle Bradish both started on the IL. Mm-hmm. And I think from the management perspective, they were expecting them to, not Kyle Bradish, but at least Grayson Rodriguez, to kind of hold down the fort and wait till some help came with Kyle Bradish and maybe someone at the trade deadline. But, the offense has been woeful.
Yeah.
And Brandon Hyde doesn't go out there and swing the bat. So it'll be interesting from a development side. It's interesting from an ownership side where they're supposed to be spending all this money, which we've kind of beaten with the dead horse on previous podcasts on the Orioles. But eventually they're going to have to look at themselves and kind of put the blame on themselves and supplement this roster where they can be competitive.
Yeah, and talking about a team in the same exact division that has not had some of these issues with acquiring talent. Cody Bellinger for the New York Yankees was one of those acquisitions where the Yankees actually went out and made some investments into an offense after they lost a guy like Juan Soto. They didn't just sit on their hands and let everything go to shit, basically. Cody Bellinger has been shining lately. I know it was kind of a rough start to the season for him. He was getting a little bit overshadowed by the Paul Goldschmidt signing, but all of a sudden now we got Cody Bellinger kind of acting like Cody Bellinger again. 13 consecutive games reaching base. He's on, I think, an 8 or 9 game hitting streak as well. And he was one of the catalysts for taking that series in the Subway Series this last weekend against the Mets. Ended up hitting a grand slam in an 8-2 victory. Is this kind of the jolt that the Yankees need from him? You think this is going to continue for him, or is this just a hot streak?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cody Bellinger plays really well at Yankee Stadium. I think he has the swing for it. All three of their acquisitions that they got due to Juan Soto walking, Fried, Goldschmidt, and Bellinger have all been performing at a level that have made the Yankees the front runner of the AL East and possibly the AL. So, yeah, I do think he can keep it up for sure.
Yeah, the Yankees are... They're such an enigma. Obviously, you got some high performing offensive players. You lost your ace at the beginning of the year, but there's like something there where it's like I feel like they're maintaining a really good level of play, but they haven't really been overly elite yet. And I wonder if the age will catch up to them a little bit later in the season. I mean, Cody Bellinger's not really a young guy. Paul Goldschmidt's not really a young guy. So some of the signings there could be questionable down the stretch, and then Judge is only getting older. But if Bellinger can keep some level of high level play, and then at the same time, they can get what they're getting out of Paul Goldschmidt, I don't see any reason that they won't win that division. I know that would be at the expense of your team, but we have to call a spade a spade. They are playing well.
Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to be an elite team unless they do something at the deadline. I think they're very vulnerable. However, they play in a wide open AL at the moment, and we will see if these older guys are able to keep this momentum. So the one thing that the Yankees do have is they have a bunch of guys who have a proven track record of winning and playing postseason baseball, and I think that is a catalyst in itself and very undervalued. A lot of teams take for granted.
Yeah, let's talk about a trade deadline piece that probably won't happen, but this is already. I mean, here we are. We're a quarter of the way into the year. Paul Skenes is into his second year now as the ace of the Pirates, and wouldn't you know it, we're talking about the Pirates offloading him. There's been some trade rumors that have sparked up. Obviously, it's centered around the Pirates' inability to compete. And if you don't think that you're going to be able to sign a guy that's as competitive as Paul Skenes is long term, do you just get out from under it now and get a haul? Or do you just, kind of let it be what it is and see what happens down the road? My take on it would be, if you're not planning on investing heavily into the team, why are you just holding on to arguably the most valuable trade chip in the MLB right now?
Well, I think they're going to hold on to him because they're not going to be able to get the value from a trade that is worth Paul Skenes' value. It's definitely a lose-lose situation. If you're a Pirates fan, I mean, I would assume that if they wanted to keep him long term, you're looking at least $500 million, and he could maybe get $700 million on the open market once he gets through arbitration.
Yeah.
And the Pirates' biggest contract in franchise history is Brian Reynolds at $106 million. So they're not even in the ballpark of what they're willing to pay Paul Skenes. And it's kind of just it's a terrible situation. if you're a fan, because ownership is essentially going to milk every ounce of dollar value that Paul Skenes brings to the Pittsburgh Pirates until, I mean, they probably trade him with 2 years left of arbitration, which he won Rookie of the Year. So what, he has another 4 years, 4 years, because he loses a year since he won Rookie of the Year. Yeah, I don't know what you do if you're the Pirates. I mean, you'd have to keep them. And the reality is they're never going to be able to supplement a team with Paul Skenes as their ace to ever make some type of push.
Well, they're not willing to. They're not willing
definitely
to.
Not willing to. Definitely not willing to. I mean, I think if you're the Pirates, it's like, how do we catch the Reds? You know, how do we catch the Brewers? Yet alone, like, how do we make the playoffs? So, right. It's sad if you're a Pirates fan. I'd love to see Paul Skenes on the Red Sox. He would fit in well with Crochet. But I just, you know, if you're another team, you're going to trade your top 5 prospects for Paul Skenes. I don't know. It's a weird trade to even consider, but it's equally as interesting that the Pirates are kind of bouncing around the idea of doing it as well.
Yeah, this definitely didn't pop up out of nowhere. I know, you know, there's been discussions in media, and this has kind of intensified a bit because of some of the Pirates' recent struggles. But I mean, this is a long track record of this happening. Paul Skenes wasn't the first. I mean, we've got guys like Garrett Cole, Tyler Glasnow, Shane Baz, Joe Musgrove, Charlie Morton, Tyon, Trevor Williams. I mean, we can go on and on and on and on with guys that the Pirates have just completely screwed the boot on it. And here we are again. And it's sad if you're a Pirates fan. And I'd be devastated if I had to actually sit through this. And I almost want to apologize, and I don't need to, because they're in my division, and the longer they stay White Sox worthy, the better. Let's talk about the Dodgers getting swept at home by the Angels. How was this? This was the first time since, 2010, since the Angels have actually swept the Dodgers. And it was kind of an ass kicking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Dodgers looked very vulnerable this weekend. Probably just the baseball gods not looking in their favor. It happens. You lose to inferior teams. Sometimes you get swept by inferior teams, apparently. But they've kind of had their bullpens been a little bit shaky. Their $80 million bullpen. I don't think it's a big deal. They'll get past it, but definitely a good headline to talk about.
Yeah, the Dodgers now have a sub 500 record against AL West teams this season. Definitely raises a little bit of concerns about the consistency that they've got there. I think really what is probably the most glaring is the pitching issues, right? Kershaw came back from the IL, immediately got beat up really bad. That was kind of expected, in my opinion. I know it's Kershaw. I love Kershaw. Everybody loves Kershaw, but you can't expect this guy to be your savior right now at this point of his career. And you've built your rotation around a bunch of guys that are older. And it's starting to kind of, you're starting to see the cracks in the mold a little bit. Hopefully they can get right at the right time and just take over, kind of as we talked about last week. But yeah, it's definitely a bit of a concern. I mean, the Angels I wouldn't call them a team that's just a bunch of bums, but definitely not like you got swept by, the Seattle Mariners or somebody like that has some sort of prestige to their name right now.
Yeah, the Dodgers started the season 8-0, and then they've been, I think, 21-18 since, so 3 games over 500. And part of that 21-18 was a 7-game win streak. So you see signs of them ready to take off, and then some injuries happen to their rotation, some injuries happen to their bullpen, and they kind of got to figure it out again. And they have some lulls. But I would imagine come summer, they will be running on all cylinders in 5th gear, where you're going to see a bunch of 5-game winning streaks and 7-game winning streaks because they've already shown they can do that already. So if you're a Dodgers fan, I would not be worried. They still, I think, are going to pull away with that division.
I love it. Doubling down from last week, and why not? You probably have it in your favor with the Dodgers being who they are. So let's skip over to the NL East. José Alvarado suspended for PED use. He tested positive for exogenous testosterone. Don't ask me what that is. However, he is suspended for 80 games and will be ineligible for postseason play upon his return, impacting the Phillies bullpen depth. They've already been struggling in the bullpen. So this is not welcome news for the Phillies. They have a 4.66 ERA as a bullpen combined, and now face increased pressures to find some late inning options here. I don't feel great about the Phillies back end bullpen, and they're definitely going to have to make a move or convert one of their starters and bring somebody else up from the minors. I'm not really sure what options they've got there. There was a funny anecdote about this though. I maybe it's funny, I don't know. Dave Dombrowski is the GM. He said the banned substance was reportedly taken as a weight loss regimen for Alvarado. So the dude's just trying to lose some weight. He's trying to get in shape, and here we are. We're chastising him for it, and now he's out 80 games. Come on, let the guy cut a little weight off.
Yeah, it reminds me of when Nick Kalathis got banged with PED use in the NBA, and he was using Rogaine.
Yeah.
So he was bald. He was trying to grow back his hair.
Yeah. Kick him while he's down, right? Jeez Louise.
Exactly. I do love that the rule where if you get caught with PEDs, you cannot compete in the playoffs. I think that's a great rule by the MLB. So kudos to that rule. The one thing, if I'm the Phillies, Joe Romano has been very productive his past couple of outings. And then they also have Orion.
Let's hear it. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not worried about their ability to supplement what's happened. Again, I agree. I think Dave's going to get it right. And he's shown willingness to invest in the team when needed. And it's absolutely needed right now. So fun stuff.
And one last note.
Yeah.
Only a half a game back from the Mets.
I know.
So
it's
with all these bullpen struggles, only a half a game back from the Mets. They have officially caught them.
We are going to talk a little bit about the Mets, but before we get to the Mets, let's talk about another team in that same division, the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves have Spencer Strider coming back from the IL, and he already came back once, and here we are again. He injured his, I believe it was his hamstring, playing catch the day after his start. What are we expecting here from Strider on his way back?
If I'm the Braves, I'm expecting an ace. It feels like deja vu. The Braves have also righted the ship. I believe they have the best record in baseball since their 0-8 start, 0-9 start. So this should only give them ammunition to continue to make their comeback. I believe they are 5 games back. They are 5 games back with a winning record, 24-23. So between Strider coming back to kind of anchor down the rotation and Acuna's inevitable return, it looks like the Braves are finally about to hit stride, is how I would look at it. No pun intended.
And to that point, Strider, when he did come back this last time after the Tommy John surgery, he did pitch 5 innings, 5 strikeouts. He allowed, I believe, 2 earned runs. So he kind of looked a little bit like himself. And I'm expecting a pretty nasty start from him this time since he's not coming back. He's kind of already built his body back up, just something lingering here. So hopefully nothing to be concerned with. However, those hamstring injuries can be a little nagging. Staying in the NL East, we're just going to talk about the whole NL East. That's what we're going to do today. Cal Quantrill through the first immaculate inning of the 2025 MLB season against the Rays. It was the second immaculate inning the Marlins have ever had. Ever. 9 pitches, 3 strikeouts. Pretty good. Elite command, and he was pretty efficient on the mound as well.
Yeah, storied franchise. I'm glad he could get into the record books for the Marlins. Cal Quantrill, the journeyman, former top prospect. So I guess he's still collecting big league checks, and that's always good on top of an immaculate inning.
Yeah, I don't think people understand how rare the immaculate inning is, but we don't have that stat on us right now, but I can tell you it does not happen very often, as referenced by it only happening once this season. Let's move over to your team. Let's talk a little Red Sox here. Christian Campbell trying out first base. I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm gonna let you talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big body guy. I think the Red Sox have moved on from Devers moving over, and so really you have the issue of Trevor Story giving you a negative defensive WAR at shortstop, which was not the plan. The plan was hopefully he's a average or below average hitter with plus defense, and he's a below average hitter with below average defense. So they got to figure stuff out. They got Marcelo Meyer, who is raking and can play. So maybe they move Christian Campbell over the first. They slide him over the second, and then kind of slowly still figure out the Trevor Story situation. But I think in the grand scheme of things, if you're the Red Sox and you want the future of Marcelo Meyer at short and Christian Campbell at second, then ultimately both of those dudes are going to have to play those positions, which means tough decisions are on the horizon.
Yeah, I do feel like this is a little bit of a desperation move. Obviously, they've had to pivot because their first option was Devers, and he said kick rocks. I do think Christian Campbell showing a willingness to move to first base is good, obviously, for the team. And he's still a young guy. You kind of expect that, right? You expect that from a rookie in the MLB. We need you to change positions right now for the betterment of the team. You can kind of play your leverage with him. Whereas in Devers' situation, he's already the stud. He's already the face of the franchise, and he's batting out of his mind. So he kind of has the leverage there. So it does feel a little desperate, but at the same time, you got to figure it out. So I don't blame them for trying anything and everything right now, and we'll see how it works out. I don't know that this includes the Devers drama, though, just in general. I think it might actually spark it up a little bit. Just, when you've got a guy like that now is willing to move positions, he's a rookie. I don't know. I have a feeling this is only just gonna flame the flame the fire here.
I don't think people are giving Devers enough credit for him realizing that he would not be good at first base. So I think that that should be noted, and he is doing the team an admirable thing by completely ruling himself out at first base.
Yeah. I don't know that would fly in a lot of other organizations, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe he just knew that he was going to suck. All right, let's skip around. We got the Twins 13-game winning streak ends finally. Those guys have been absolutely raking. They lost 5-2 with against the Brewers yesterday. We're filming this on 5/19, so yesterday 5/18. During the streak, Minnesota actually set a franchise record with 34 consecutive scoreless innings. These guys are high right now, and I don't really see them cooling off too much. The division isn't overly crazy right now. We just saw the Royals this last week struggle a little bit on this weekend series with the Cardinals. Everybody but the Detroit Tigers feels gettable, in my opinion, and the Twins are playing better than any of them.
Yeah, 6 of those wins came against the Orioles. I don't think they'll be playing them anytime soon. Um, Kudos to the Tigers. The Twins in May go on a 13-game win streak, and we're 8 games back, and we're only able to gain 3 games on the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
So they still remain 5 games back of the Tigers. I think that speaks more of the Tigers than the Twins. But definitely some really big positives. It's hard to win 13 games in a row, no matter who you play. As you see, the Dodgers just lost 3 to the Angels, so it is hard to win 13 games in a row.
Yeah.
The last time they won that many games, I believe, was 11 in 1991 or 2, and that's when they won the World Series. So maybe some positives there for the Twins. But they do have some positives on their team with their rotation and their bullpen.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Minnesota Twins here in a bit. They're going to be our GM spotlight of the week here. So we'll save a little bit of that, but just in general, talking about a 13-game winning streak, it doesn't happen very often throughout MLB seasons. Kudos to them, and I think especially when you're doing it with a roster that doesn't on paper set the world on fire. You know, I mean, they're good. You got some solid guys, but when you can kind of go out there and play as a team and do it at a high level, it's definitely fun to watch, and good for them. I hope that they continue it in that division. Let's talk. We're going back to the NL East here for a minute, and we're actually going to stay here for a minute. So, Brandon Nimmo had a belt buckle shown this last weekend. It infuriated my co-host here, and just in general, it looked ridiculous. It looked like cartoon cowboy energy. Some weird memes gonna come from this. I think I heard people calling him Mermaid Man from SpongeBob. Um, give me your take on this real quick and tell me how pissed off it made you.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. I immediately will root against Brandon Nimmo until he's done playing baseball, or as long as he wears that belt buckle. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Like, you got the shoes, you got the pads on the arm, you got tattoos, you get all this flair, and then he decides to flare it up even more with this Toy Story belt buckle you get from a McDonald's Happy Meal type thing. It was outrageous. And he's in the interview with ESPN on Monday or on Sunday Night Baseball, or maybe it was Saturday night when he was getting interviewed in the field, and the guys didn't even ask him about it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That might be more shocking.
Insane. Like, where's their bad commentating by them? That would have been my first question. Dude, what are you wearing? Like, what is this? Where'd you get this? How is this legal? How is this legal in the MLB? It was wild. I'm upset about it.
Yeah, for as much as we talk about guys' outfits and everything else these days, that should have been topic number 1 on that broadcast. 100%.
Question 1.
Yeah, where'd you get this belt? Let's talk a little bit more serious about the Mets. So we will stay on the Mets here for a minute. So Juan Soto, he's starting to get called out a little bit here. I don't know if everybody watched the Subway Series this last week. It did not go well for Soto. He tried to play this whole nonchalant attitude, and it really just came across as, I don't care to be here. And it was kind of weird. He went 1 for 10, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. He scored 2 runs, and he stole a base. For you guys keeping score at home, that's a 100 batting average. It was horrible. And his body language and demeanor just, it seemed off. And now after the Subway Series, I think it was actually sparked by a really lazy attempt to get to first base on a ground out. And now Mets officials are reportedly concerned about Juan Soto's lack of effort, enthusiasm, and potentially commitment to the team. And we are a quarter of one season into a 15-year contract. How worried are you about Juan Soto's demeanor currently and his buy-in potentially to the team?
I wouldn't be too concerned. I feel like this is just the management of superstars in today's sports world. Um, Probably had some awkward feelings going back in the Yankee Stadium. The Yankee fans were weird too. It was like he was there for 1 year and they acted like Derek Jeter had signed with the Red Sox, um, with Juan Soto. I, you know, I think he could have won some fans over by having a productive series against the Yankees. But it's May baseball. Uh, he's getting paid $700 million. He basically can do what he wants. He's a generational talent. He's going to be fine. And it just kind of is what it is when it comes to dealing with superstars like this.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here for me, right, is you left the Yankees because you really didn't want to be in Judge's shadow. I mean, he can say everything he wants about whatever, but at the end of the day, it came down to he didn't want to have to play in Judge's shadow. He wanted to be the guy, the face of the franchise of the team in New York. And to me, it's one of the reasons he chose the Mets was for their long-term outlook, is from what we've been told, from numerous sources that have spoken to Juan Soto and all this other stuff, is that it was a long-term thing. That's it. They didn't offer him the most money. It was a long-term thing, and he really bought into Cohen's vision and all this stuff. So if that's your goal and you want to be the face of this franchise for this long-term thing, you can't get caught up in short-term crap like this and kind of sink into a shell of yourself playing in one of the biggest spotlights on national television and one of the biggest series of your first year as a Met. It just, to me, it doesn't scream, commitment to the team. However, I will give him a little bit of grace here. His stats look bad, not just from the series, but in general for the year. I wouldn't say they look bad. They don't look great for a guy that's making the money that he is. StatCast still loves him. His expected batting average, his hard hit percentage, his barrel rate all suggests that a breakout is coming. He probably will start slugging balls here pretty soon. But, man, you want to be the face of the Mets franchise, start with, running to first base.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you come from a franchise like the Yankees, which is cream of the crop in baseball, and you're part of that for a year, and you see the tradition, and you see all the numbers in the outfield retired with the Stones and everything that comes with being a Yankee. And then you leave, for whatever reason, but you leave, and you come back, and it's a different environment. And I think it's human nature to miss it for sure. But on the same token, it's like, the Mets are investing a lot right now. They have a great owner to be playing for, and that's what you have to be committed to. But I think it's just New York media trying to stir something up. Honestly, just trying to make a headline. Juan Soto is going to be just fine, and I think the Mets are very happy to have him.
Last point on this, I personally think it is not fine. And I'm just going to be completely honest here. I do believe that the Mets have a long, drawn out history, kind of like the Pirates do with their superstar pitchers. The Mets have a long history of signing big contracts to guys and it just falling flat, and they can't make it work, and they never get over the hump. And it's Mets baseball, baby. That's what it is. And it's unfortunate, but until I see Juan Soto be the Juan Soto that we know and bought into the team and act like the superstar that he is, not just from a StatCast perspective, from an effort level, from a buy into the team, I'm not willing to say that this is a nothing burger. I think that we might have something here. So we'll see. We'll see. I do think that there's probably a little bit more of a fluff because it's, right after the Subway Series, but let's see. Let's see.
It is odd that he's not doing the Soto shuffle anymore. I mean, I personally hated it. I think it's a growing, maturing thing. But that was kind of like his signature move, and he hasn't done it all year. I guess read into that however you may. But I'm staying with my take of it's a nothing burger.
He's not having fun, man. He's not having fun. Um, we'll be monitoring that and talking about that through the season. Hopefully, for Mets fans, this is not an attack on the Mets. It is a observation, though, of things that could go wrong, and it needs to be fixed. Ownership will get it right. Cohen knows what's going on over there. So, speaking of ownership, speaking of front offices, let's go to our GM spotlight segment, the Minnesota Twins. Exciting. I'm actually really excited about this. This team has been playing really well. We kind of mentioned it earlier on the podcast. A 13-game winning streak just came to an end. Let's look a little bit at their outlook coming up and, what we can expect from the Twins, maybe just this year and potentially, as a franchise going forward. Let's start out with their payroll. So the Twins payroll does stand at approximately $146.7 million. It ranks 18th in the MLB and leads the AL Central, which actually surprised me a little bit. I know that they've given out some contracts, but I guess when you kind of look at it on the face of it, the Royals and the Tigers have really done it through the draft and through developing prospects. So the Twins, probably with the Correa signing and the Pablo Lopez signing, I think that they probably have a little bit more invested than some of those other teams in the division.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Twins were going to be the seller of this MLB season, and after this 13-game win streak, I think they could be buyers. Really, I thought they were going to be sellers due to their ownership trying to sell the team and being $425 million in debt. And they have some older players on the bad side of contracts that could still be valuable for a team that's in the hunt. And then they can kind of relieve some payroll and get some prospects back. But depending on the ranking system, they have a top 10 farm system. I think some are up to number 2. I think the average is around 5 or 6 farm system. So if they do need to supplement their roster for a push, if they're able to continue winning, they definitely can. And their team is definitely built around their pitching. They have a great starting rotation with Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober. And then Chris Paddock, a journeyman, has been overperforming. So they have a good 4-man rotation that they can throw out there. And then their bullpen, they also arguably have the best closer in baseball in Johan Duran, who is absolutely filthy, a monster, 6'5", 230 pounds. There's absolute cheddar bob. And they got guys to supplement him as well with Griffin Jacks and Danny Colomb, who's on the IL currently. But both 2 high-quality relievers and then an elite closer. As AJ mentioned before, their offense, injury prone, but when fully healthy can be dangerous. You have the likes of Royce Lewis and Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton that can kind of anchor down your lineup. And then you have a bunch of role players like Harrison Bader, who's overperforming, Ty France, who's overperforming, and then young catcher Ryan Jeffers, who's really good. They got a veteran catcher in Christian Vasquez who can manage a entire staff and play above average defense. And Cody Clemens, Roger Clemens' kid on the team, doing his thing. Yeah. But overall, I think to begin the year, a lot of them predicted to make a run at the division, and got off to a very slow start. And now they're right back in the thick of things and could potentially be a playoff contender. And once you get in the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yeah, it's almost a complete 180 from what happened last year, which they actually started hot last year, really hot, and then they cooled off, and then they got kind of hot again, and then they stumbled at the end of the year. So maybe it could be a complete 180 here. Some of the things that happened after that stumble in 2024 was a lot of changes to the staff and also changes to the executive teams. Derek Falvey was promoted to president of baseball operations in 2025, and Dave St. Peter transitioned to a strategic advisor. At the same time, they parted ways with Thad Levine and several coaches, including 3 from the hitting staff. So we're already seeing some of the dividends paid from the changes to the actual staff. I'm hoping that in the front office piece of it, if some moves need to be made, that now you've got the right people in place to be able to, make that happen. We could be looking at a potential, Pablo Lopez trade chip. Also, you got some guys like you mentioned, Christian Vasquez and Chris Paddock, that could also be considered, trade pieces to balance out the payroll and to bring in some additional value down the stretch here. So I definitely think that if they're in a position to compete at the end of, toward the end of the trade deadline, we could see them make a move. They haven't been known to do that very often, but it could be interesting if they're in a position to win that division.
Yeah, and I mean, I think offensively is where they can supplement, and they might even do that internally, as their top 3 prospects are outfielders and a person that can play kind of all around. Their third overall prospect, Luke Keschel. He is currently up at the big league level. He's hitting .368 currently. I think he's only been called up for a couple weeks, but still good to see. So they have some options internally as well. I don't see, with a active ownership trying to sell the team and being in debt, I don't see them taking on payroll. So they're going to have to be creative, which I think in the past they have been creative prior. They're used to doing more with less. But it's one of those things where if you can just kind of keep the core together, especially Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan, I mean, that's a good 1-2 punch that can win any series that you need to.
Yeah, and hopefully they can, get some arms going in the minors as well. Get some prospects that are highly touted and kind of groom them to be able to come in and take them long term. But I agree. I think that there's something to be said about the Minnesota Twins this year. I'm not ready to count them out of winning that division. And, you mentioned earlier about the Detroit Tigers definitely took, they took care of business to keep the lead. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Minnesota Twins make another little push. I think they're actually already winning again today. And if they can get a couple of, streaks going where they rip off 5-6 games in a row, don't be surprised to watch them fight their way up to that number 1 spot. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting. They have that entire division has kind of came alive where you got 4 teams over 500. They will play the Royals at home this weekend. And I think it'll be a good kind of, are they for real or for not, if they can kind of take care of business this weekend.
So let's talk a little bit about where we are in the current standings of the MLB. So right now, we'll take a look at the AL first since we're kind of already here. So the Yankees have a 5-game lead in the AL East now. And again, we just talked about the Tigers. They also opened a 5-game lead. And the Mariners have a 2.5-game lead in the AL West. I'm not overly shocked by any 3 of those things happening. I think we kind of talked about last week how we were a little bit maybe shocked that the Mariners were sitting atop the division over there. But based on how they've played and how the Rangers have played and how the Astros have played, it doesn't shock me that those guys have really, taken a hold of that division and hopefully can keep it going, because I think it'd be fun to see Seattle take that division over for at least a year.
Yeah, I think the Mariners have only made the playoffs 2 times since the 2000s, since the millennium. Yeah. So that would be cool. The only 2 teams I feel confident in are the Tigers and Dodgers. I think those 2 will be the front runners for the remainder of the year in those divisions. This could be the last week the Mets are in first place. Be interesting to see what their fans have to say about that. And then we'll see if the Cubs can continue to tread water and I still think the Yankees are vulnerable. I still think they're vulnerable. So we'll see. Probably after this week, they'll have a 10-game lead, and I'll still say they're vulnerable. But
I think the Yankees are probably more likely to run away with that division than you would love to believe. I think that there's a lot going on, obviously, within the Red Sox organization. Just a bit of infighting, obviously, that we've already covered. Just a little weirdness, maybe a little cloud around the Red Sox organization to kind of keep them at bay. I do think the Yankees feel the most as a team right now. I think that they have a lot going behind them. Um, obviously, I think this last weekend series against the Mets is going to propel them a little bit. And to your point about the Mets, though, I mean they've lost 4 out of 5 now. They lost again today to your Boston Red Sox. So there's definitely reason to be concerned if you're a Mets fan sitting atop that division. But right now, I don't see any reason to be scared if you're a Yankees fan. I think you feel like you got the division pretty much in hand right now.
well, the Sox lead the majors in hits, and they're 4-12 in one-run games. So you just win half of those one-run games, and it's a completely different story in the AL East. But it is what it is. But I like those numbers if you're a Red Sox fan. And I also will not count out the Blue Jays or the Rays for the AL East. And I think they're coming up. There will be a lot of AL East play. I think the Red Sox play the Yankees next week, and it'll be crunch time. It'll be crunch time, and it'll be after this next 3-4 weeks. There will be a clear understanding of what's going to happen in the AL East.
Yeah, I got one more bad stat here for you as a Red Sox fan. So you did mention the one-run games. The Boston Red Sox expected win-loss record right now is a 25-24 record. They are 24-25. So the expected win-loss record is 1 game different. The Yankees, however, are 27-19. Their expected win-loss total is 31-15. So they would actually have a heck of a lead in this division if they were playing up to the expected stats for them. So I don't know, man. It's gonna get down to the nitty gritty for sure, but I don't think that there's any reason to be nervous, I guess, if I'm a Yankees fan right now, until I see somebody else grab that division and really work hard at it, and cut some games down. But we are still early. We're still only about a quarter into the season, so there is hope for your beloved Red Sox. Let's skip over to the NL East. We can trash the Cubs now. So let's talk about the NL East. We've got the Phillies have a 4.5 game lead on the Braves, but have actually now tied the Mets. This, as of right now, breaking news. The Mets are no longer in solo first place. They are actually by win percentage in second place in the NL East. So this is a big topic here. I definitely think that there's reason to be concerned for the Mets, but I do think I still think that they're the best team right now in that division. I think they're just going through a little bit of a rough patch here. Be wary of the Atlanta Braves, though. Be wary of the Atlanta Braves. They are baseball's hottest team, I guess you could call them, over the last like 4 or 5 weeks or something like that. Since their 0-8 start, they have like one of the best records in baseball.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the Mets at all. Haven't been worried about the Mets since day one. This is classic Met behavior. So, it was good while it lasted. You still have Juan Soto. As soon as they form a more complete team, I think they're going to be, we'll be able to talk about them more confidently. And the Phillies are in their window right now. They're in their window. I can't speak about that enough. And they got a guy, Dave Dombrowski, that understands that and will sell the house for the window. And having that been said, I still trust the Braves to do their thing and come back and win that division. Central, the Francona Reds, the fighting Franconas, they've been playing pretty mad baseball. Cards are
Treading
still
water,
staying.
though. Treading
Treading
water.
water for sure. Still only 3.5 back. I believe they play the Cubs this weekend.
They do.
So that would be an interesting series to see what happens. The Cubs, we'll see if they can overcome these injuries. They're piling up, and you can only last so long, especially when you don't have superior talent compared to everyone else. So that'll be interesting. I think the Cards are going to slide back down eventually. I think their heat wave is about over. And Bo also agrees with that. He's having nightmares right now about the Yankees. And the Brewers, the manager came out, was calling out the ownership and calling out his team. It was actually kind of odd. So I don't feel as confident as them as I would in prior years where they do more with less. It looks like a little panic situation over there. And then obviously the West is still the West. Padres are slipping, in my opinion. I think they're finally going to come back down to earth. While the Giants still look good.
Yeah. Yeah. 1 point on the Central. So the Cincinnati Reds they have an expected win-loss record of 28-21, which would be considerably better than their 25-24 record, would actually put them currently in a second place situation, second only to the Cubs. I do agree. I think St. Louis's little rendezvous may be coming to an end here soon. But when we were talking about the Cubs and can they sustain their winning percentage with the roster and with the injuries, I do think the Cubs do have a substantial talent gap between the rest of the Central teams. That would be the only caveat there. I don't think that any of the other rosters, if you look up and down those lineups, I don't think any of them have a lineup that would really square up to the Cubs in that division. The only thing that's going to hurt the Cubs is going to be pitching. So we'll see how that pans out. Yeah, so let's look about last week's predictions. You excited to talk about it this week, Joe?
Yeah, I felt like I did solid. Couple here and there's that didn't go my way, but it goes like that sometimes.
So the Subway Series, we had the Mets taken by Joe 2-1. I had the Yanks 2-1. There was no surprise in those predictions. The Yankees did end up winning the series 2-1. I did take that one. It was thanks to a Cody Bellinger grand slam, which we talked about earlier. It was a fun
throwing error.
Yeah, well, Pete Alonso had a rough Subway Series as well. I wouldn't count on that happening between him and Soto every time out. So can't feel too bad about that series if you're the Mets, but I feel great about it considering my prediction there. Seattle and San Diego, you did take Seattle 2-1. I took San Diego. To your point, the faltering has started a little bit in San Diego. I think they've lost like 4 straight, and they're like 4 in their last 6. It was a Seattle sweep. Joe won that prediction. The Athletics versus Giants last week. Joe did take the Athletics 2-1, whereas I took the Giants 2-1. I don't blame you for the pick, though. The A's came in hot, and I think the Dodgers might have taken a little wind out of their sails on that last game that they won like 20-2 or whatever it was. San Fran ended up sweeping that.
They had a lot of close games in that.
Very close.
So
one went extra innings as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one we had was the Cardinals versus Royals. We both got the boot on this one. I think you had the Royals to sweep. You did. You had the Royals to sweep. I had the Royals 2-1. The Cardinals won 2-1, and we both lost our prediction there. That brings our season total to a 500 winning percentage for Joe at 14-14 and a 12-16 record for myself. I'm feeling like this is going to be kind of how it's going to be this year. I think I have a feeling we're gonna be neck and neck, and it's gonna come down. I really hope so. By the way, I really hope it comes down to like our last podcast of the season, and it comes down to those games. That would be so awesome. Speaking of head to heads, our fantasy leagues chugging along. We're midway through a matchup this week, and where's your confidence level on winning this current matchup?
The team is battling, so they have me projected to win, but I am currently down 4-8-1. It was 3-9, so I must have just tied something up. Kind of, pretty standard behavior from my team this year. Down big, and then come towards the end of the second week, they just come alive. Ownership pushes the right buttons, and the team prevails. So I'm hoping for a little bit of the same.
Speaking of projections, is Joe the projectionist hater finally coming around and saying, "Hey, they got me projected to win here. Maybe I got a chance."
Well, you can't take projections seriously, so that's why you gotta press the buttons at the end of the week to stay in control of these things. But yeah, I mean, I need offense bad, and when my pitching underperforms, it becomes a nightmare. So just kind of the strategy I went with this first year draft.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same situation. My team right now is down 5, 7, and 1 in those categories. I don't feel overly confident, if I'm being honest, about pulling this one out. The individual that I'm playing this week, I'll just give you a rundown of his superstars. He has Ohtani. He's got Kyle Schwarber, who's hot and hitting really well. He also has Tarek Skubal on his team, which I went through his roster the other day, and I know we're gonna get some crap about this in the group chat, but I was going down his roster. I'm like, how does he have these guys? Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Shohei Ohtani, Trey Turner on offense, and then on his pitching staff, he's got Max Fried, Tarek Skubal, Jacob deGrom, Mitch Keller. Those are all like first round picks, and then even injured, he's got Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, and yeah, man, he's got a stud roster. So maybe
he's got a veteran roster. He's got a veteran roster.
Correct. We are in a dynasty league, and we have to remember that these days. It is a veteran roster, but it could propel him to a potential championship.
He's going for gold year one for sure. I mean, he's got Will Smith, he's got Trey Turner, Jose Altuve, Paul Goldschmidt.
I am feeling pretty good about my homers, at least this week. My team's already hit 18 this week, and his has hit 13, so it's a slugfest. It's a slugfest. I don't see myself pulling it out, if I'm just being completely honest. And we will continue to try and claw our way back into relevancy after our first week. Let's talk a little prospect update. So a couple key points here. Quick, we got Jack Caglione was finally promoted from AA to AAA. He had a 947 OPS in 38 games this year. The dude's been slugging. He is a future superstar in the MLB, I do believe, just based on all the tools that he has, and he's only getting better. Really excited to see him get promoted. Matt Shaw was recalled from AAA to the MLB. I don't believe he had a great outing today against the Marlins. However, it is hopefully good news for the Cubs if they can stabilize their third base situation over there. And last but not least, Mick Abel. Not McCable, like MC Abel, like I thought it was. Mick M-I-C-K Abel. 6 shutout innings, 9 strikeouts, pitched against Skenes the other day. and what some are calling outdueled him. I don't know if I would agree with that. Skenes went 8 innings, 1 earned, 9 Ks. I don't know if anybody really outdueled anybody there. I think the Pirates probably just do what they normally do, which is let Skenes down.
Yeah, you got. If you're a Phillies fan, you got to be pumped because they got McAble, and then they also still have Andrew Painter still in the minors. So from a trade deadline acquisition, especially if you hope that Aaron Nola can get back into form, I mean, they have a really, really, really good rotation for that, playoff push, and they can go get a reliever or maybe another bat to supplement that roster even more.
And Painter is painting, guys. You guys can go take a look at his stats in the minor leagues. He is absolutely disgusting on the mound. Joe, let's run through a little who's hot, who's not. You want to give us our hot for the past 2 weeks?
I got, starting off, Rafael Devers, spelled with the PH for some reason in the notes. He is hitting .409 with a 1259 OPS, 4 home runs, 7 runs, and 18 RBIs. Absolute stud. Pete Crow Armstrong, last 7 games, 458 average, leads majors in extra base hits since April 12th. He is solidifying himself as a bona fide all-star. Brian Wu, 2 quality starts in his last 2 weeks, a 2.79 ERA, a .913 whip with 17 Ks. That'd have to be fact checked on this, but I believe he's the only pitcher in Major League Baseball this year to throw at least 6 innings in all of his starts. Will Benson, past 2 weeks, 526 average, 5 home runs, 10 RBIs, 5 runs. He is 43% rostered in fantasy. He could be a quick add. You got Miguel Vargas, 417 average, 9 home runs, 9 RBIs, 5 runs the past 2 weeks. Josh Jung, 360 average, 6 runs, 7 RBIs, 3 home runs past 2 weeks. Merrill Kelly, 19 Ks, a .64 ERA, and .86 whip for the Diamondbacks the past 2 weeks. And then lastly, we have Jordan Romano, who is replacing the fat loss king Alvarado. And he has 6 Ks, 0 ERA, a .33 whip, and 2 saves the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, the only person I'm going to even mention here, I'll mention 2. One, PCA, just being a Cubs fan. That guy has been absolutely unbelievable to watch. I really hope that he continues up, kind of keeping up his hot play. And as a center fielder, man, he's fun to watch on the defensive side. And then Miguel Vargas for the White Sox. I was watching the Crosstown series this last week. Man, this guy just would not stop hitting home runs out in Wrigley Field. It was the only reason really that the White Sox were even in contention in any of those games. So kudos to him. I believe he actually won Player of the Week this last week. So that's exciting for the White Sox. Give you a little bit of something to be happy about.
He's also only 57% rostered. So another guy that can be picked up.
Go get him. Go get him. Let's talk about guys that are not hot. And I'll tell you, there are some real duds on this list. But one is not a dud, in my opinion, Christian Campbell. He has a .093 average, a .276 OPS, and he's only hit 1 home run. And I believe this is his last 2 weeks. That's rough. But young guy, still getting used to the grind of the MLB schedule. I expect his talent level to prevail, and do not give up on that guy yet. Too early. Let's talk Christian Yelich. Now, this guy, he's been trending downwards for quite a while. Over his last 16 games, he has a .172 average and 25 strikeouts. No bueno. No bueno for Mr. Christian Yelich and the Brewers. I don't know what to do with him right now if I own him. I don't think you're really going to get anybody in your league to be real excited about him in a trade. But I do think he's still too good of a player potentially to drop outright. So just hold on to him a little bit longer. We'll revisit him maybe in the next couple weeks here and see if he's gotten his act together. Jamison Tyon, 2 with a 7.20 ERA over his last 2 starts. He's allowed 7 home runs. He is somebody that you can give up on. Go ahead and drop him. He's not going to win you a fantasy league this year. Trevor Story, another Boston Red Sox player, a 116 average, a 360 OPS, 1 homer as well, and a -2 fielding run value. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Trevor Story right now. He's always been kind of a streaky player though. And next week we might be talking about him on the hot list, and he's hit 5 homers. So I don't know.
If he continues this pace, he'll be DFA'd in a month and a half.
Yeah, well, a -2 fielding run value is not going to please any baseball execs, especially ones willing to call their own players out. And Aaron Nola was the last on our list here. 13 earned runs, 5 home runs allowed in his last 2 starts. He is now on the IL. I believe he had an ankle injury, I want to say. So those are the guys that right now are just not inspiring the hosts of Toast Sports Baseball. We will continue to monitor that. But right now, duds of the week. Series to watch. Our most fun segment on the entire podcast. Who do you got? Dodgers at Mets is our number 1 series to watch this weekend. Sunday Night Baseball. Joe, go ahead.
I'm continuing the Mets slide, so I'm taking the Dodgers. We'll take 2 out of 3.
So, Mets fans, here you go. This is your one shining moment from me this week. I got the Mets taking out the Dodgers. The Mets go back home. They're going to be a little bit perturbed by that Subway Series. I got Mets 2-1. I think Canning has pitched really well. And Kodai Senga is also pitching at a really high level. I think he has like a 1.43 ERA. I just don't think Kershaw and Gonsolin and Knack, who will be pitching for the Dodgers, really instill a lot of confidence. Is it Twins? Who you got here?
I am going with Twins. I like Pablo Lopez and Ober to win those games, so I'm going Twins 2 out of 3.
Yeah, the first game, we still have a TBD on the pitcher for the Royals, but it will be against Pablo Lopez. I do agree. I think the Twins get it done in that game. I do think Waka and Bubic get the wins in the next 2 matchups. I'm going to take the Royals 2-1. I think they got off the slide there against St. Louis at the end of their last matchup. Let's go Padres at Braves. This is actually going to be a fun series. We're going to see a lot. This is going to tell us a lot about these 2 teams, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. And I got the Braves going 2 out of 3. At home, staying hot. Got Strider on Sunday, Schwellenbach on Saturday. So I think they'll win those 2 games.
Yeah, I got to say, I really want to take the Braves here. They did have to travel all the way out to San Diego to start the season, and they got their butts kicked by the San Diego Padres. I do think the Braves end up getting it done here as well. I think they take 2 out of 3. I will say, though, it's not going to be easy, man. Pivetta, King, and Cease are the scheduled starters for the Padres, and the Braves offense hasn't really instilled a ton of confidence in you lately. I don't know. I want to see them get off of the snide here and kind of get it done, but we'll see. We may be both taking the L there, or we'll both be rolling in glory. Our last matchup series to watch this weekend, the Mariners at the Astros. Who do you got here, Joe?
I got the Mariners 2-1 with Wu and Castillo. That's TBD for Game 3 for both teams. The Astros are in second place currently in the AL West, so it should be a good weekend series to possibly determine who is in first place at the start of the new week.
Drum roll, please. I believe the Astros are about to put a nice little belt whooping to the Mariners.
Sweep?
And I'm going sweep here. I think the Astros need it. and I think the Astros get it. I got Blanco and Valdez are the game 1 and 2 starters for the Astros, and I think they get it done. I do love the Mariners, and I'm not down on them at all. I just think the Astros need it, and I think they'll get it at home. That's a wrap. That's a wrap on episode 9 of Toast Sports Baseball. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure to follow, like, leave a comment, tell us how we're idiots and we're wrong about all the stuff that we talk about. And if you need some more baseball in your life, hit the subscribe button. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. And as always, stay toasty.